Dear colleagues, so I guess we can start. Maybe the schedule of our presenters will be a little bit in other, I don't know.
Order.
Yeah, because not all of presenters are here right now. I'm happy to welcome you on the last session of today. It was very intense day, and here in Moscow it is almost 6 p.m. For those who are in Mexico, I guess it is morning.
8 o'clock morning.
Yeah, so we're on different stages of activity, but thank you everyone who are here, and I hope some people will come later to hear the presentations. There are several people in the audience, if you don't see Edgar. So today, I think we will start from, I don't see Milli Abishek. No, not here, and no online. So Edgar, I will be happy to give a floor for you. I guess you will introduce yourself and your paper. I will just tell everyone, for the presenters, we will have 15 or maybe even 20 minutes for the presentation and 5-10 minutes for discussion, as we have only, I guess, 3 presenters, so we will have more time for discussion. So take your time. And I guess I will tell you 2 minutes beforehand when time is over. So Edgar, please.
Хорошо. Спасибо большое. Меня зовут Эдгар Деметрио. Это мое имя, моя фамилия Товар Гарсия. Я доктор экономических наук, университет Барселоны. I will be presenting in English because I was preparing my presentation in English. And therefore, now let me share my screen. Let me know everything is okay. If you can see my presentation, please. And let me know you can hear me correctly. It's okay,
Yeah,
Dasha?
yeah, everything is okay.
Well, the title of my article, my paper, my research is Binaural Music and Educational Outcomes. Evidence from longitudinal panel data and quasi-experimental data. I have to tell you that because of time, there are many details about this research that I will not be able to explain accurately. Nevertheless, I will tell you about one paper that I was following for the procedure, for the methods, and something that I am still using here. And in addition, I would like to tell you that this paper is already under review, so probably will be published soon. And therefore, you can know the details about this research. Let me start telling you, for those who are professors, it's very clear, at least in my country, in Mexico, the last time I was teaching in Russia was the year 2016 and was not so problematic. But after that, I came to Mexico, and with this new generation, with millennial and post-millennial generation, actually here is very, very difficult to gain and to keep attention of the students. And in the year 2020, when the pandemic arrived in Mexico, the lockdown started in March in 2020. Well, to try to gain and keep attention of the students just after the coronavirus in the online class, and even today with this kind of hybrid teaching models, or this moment with the post-COVID teaching process, it's very difficult to find, to keep the attention of the students. It's a major concern. Obviously, in the classroom, in the face-to-face teaching, you have many didactic tools to keep attention of the students. But online is more complicated. And at that moment, and I will explain you a little bit why this is a natural experiment. And at that moment, I was thinking, what can I do to don't lose my students, right? And I was looking for music because it's very well known, the Mozart effect. So I was playing music in 2020, at the very beginning of the 2020, and in the second part of the 20 or a little bit, I was using classical music as a background music to keep and maintain the attention of my students. Nevertheless, actually, very soon, I found the binaural music in social networks, and I started using this music as background music in my classroom, my online classroom, in 2020. And I found that the performance, the academic achievements on my students was really better. Yeah, when I was using the music, I just was noted, it's my opinion at that moment, that my students was doing a better job with the music than without the music. From this paper, when I was using the music, I paid particular attention to this article by these three authors, and they showed evidence with experiment. In my case, it's a natural experiment, quasi-experiment, but I was following this paper. They used an experiment, and they found that when they are using classic music for lectures, actually students learn better. And this is the reason that at the beginning I was using classical music. Then later, in my opinion, binaural music was better in 2020. As a consequence, in 2021, I decided that my natural experiment will be more formal, to systemize all this data, all this information, to test a couple of questions, yeah? Therefore, given this background, given what happened to me in 2020, I decided to start with this general question about binaural music. Yeah, does binaural music really work? And now let me tell you just quickly what I mean, what we know, what that means to this binaural beat. And let me tell you that binaural beats occurs when two sounds of different frequencies are processed by the brain, creating the sense of the third sound. Well, you can use it, and they say that it's like a music. Actually, it's not a music. In my opinion, it's more just like a sound. And as the technology say, there are two different sounds that your brain is processing as only one sound. And I decided to test the impact of this binaural music on the educational outcomes of my students. And because of the coronavirus, and because I'm telling you, I just decided to use the music to gain the attention of my students. And it was working in 2020. And in 2021, I decided to do it formally, collecting all this kind of data. Let me tell you a little bit more about the binaural beats that they were discovered by this guy, Henry Spellman Dove. Sorry for the pronunciation, not sure how to pronounce his name. And binaural beats was discovered in 1839, so many years ago. Then these binaural beats were tested by this guy, Gerald Oster, in the encephalograph. And what they mentioned, what we know about these binaural beats. First, that we know that the brain relies on electric impulse, brain waves, and these determine the state of conscience. Yeah, it's the state of consciousness. And usually, our brain is in four states of conscience that in the literature we call delta, theta, alpha, and beta. But I also found in the literature the gamma frequency. What these binaural beats are doing, these two sounds in one sound, what they are doing, well, they can stimulate your brain waves, to move from one of these states to other state. And what people is doing now in social networks, what they try to do is using this binaural beat to move from the beta state to the alpha state. And they are doing like this because we know that the beta state is the most popular in modern society, but this beta state is correlated with tension, anxiety, and stress. By contrast, the alpha state is correlated with a receptive mind, will help you to with focus, with attention, to try to learn. And therefore, what they are doing is using these binaural beats in music to help people to move from this beta state to this alpha state that will help you to get focus. Well, this idea in education, there is not evidence to this moment, not for the best of my knowledge. There is no empirical and scientific evidence of this is happening. Nevertheless, there is a lot of evidence in other fields. In medicine, for instance, people using this to control for hypertension, for surgeries, in medicine, they have been using this music in several fields, and there is evidence that it's working, that actually is helping people to relax and to get focused. But in education and in other areas of social science, I did not find any evidence for that. Therefore, I think that this was a good idea to formalize my natural experiments and to test the impact of these binaural beings in educational performance. Accordingly, in 2021, still under the conditions of the pandemic, 73 students were participating in my natural experiment. They provide me 707 observations in 16 points in time. Therefore, I had panel data. And here also I have to tell you very quickly what I'm doing. The idea is very simple. There are many details that obviously later I can explain. So I was in 2021. I had only 3 groups. 2 groups are about microeconomics. I have the group A and group B, and the other group is about international economics. What I was doing? Well, using the music as the treatment, as the experiment, in one partial of the semester, and I didn't use the music in the second part of the partial. Let me explain you a little bit more because it will be better for you. Here we're teaching in one semester, and the semester is divided in 3 partials. Therefore, in partial 1, I was using the music in my lecture in the group of microeconomics A and international economics. And in partial 2, I was not using the music. And by contrast, I was using the music from microeconomics B. In other words, when I was lecturing in partial 1, I was using music, and in partial 2, I was not using music, just to test if actually there is an impact of binaural music on quizzes. After each lecture, students have to answer a quiz, and I would like to know they are improving their quiz scores after the music. Now, and please, I will ask you not to Google the video now. I will put the link to the video in the chat, but please don't go now to the link to the video, where you will find the music that I was using. There are many options. Yeah, you go to YouTube, Spotify, and so on, and you will find many options of people who is producing this music, this binaural beats as music, and therefore, given my discussion with my colleagues, I think that this video that I'm telling you here will be easier for you to remember this phase. Yeah, this is the video that I'm using with the music that I'm using as background music when I was lecturing to my students. Don't Google for this now, later you will have time. And what I was doing first with my data, just analyzing descriptive statistics. And given this descriptive statistics, I would like you pay particular attention to microeconomics A. And then later I will explain what is happening here. Just comparing mean comparison, when I was using the music with this group, micro A, you will see that by contrast, it seems that when I'm using the treatment, I mean, when I'm using the music, the average score of quizzes is less than without the music, against my hypothesis. But in microeconomics B, it's clear that when I'm using the treatment, when I'm using the music, they're actually improving the quizzes scores. Then don't forget I had micro A, micro B, and I was comparing between groups. And when the microeconomics B is the control group, I mean this without music, there is evidence again suggesting that the treatment is useful to improve the results in quizzes. But when the group A again is the control and B is listening to music, it's not clear, yeah? The p-value is slightly high. And therefore, in the case of macroeconomics, in particular in the case of macroeconomics A, the results are mixed. To this moment, just analyzing descriptive statistics. In the case of international economies, this group number 3, by contrast, it's very clear that with the music, with the treatment, they were improving the quizzes scores a lot, yes, statistically significant. Well, when I explained to students what I was doing with the music, they gave me the writing consent to use this data, and also they answered a background questionnaire. And with this background questionnaire, I was able to use control variables. There are variables measuring concerns about internet connection, language concerns, about the coronavirus concerns, and so on. Well, I was able to use regression analysis, using panel data, random effects to include time invariant variables, and also because it's recommended by the Hausman test. And I was just using regression analysis to test the impact of the treatment, the music, on the quizzes scores, given my control variables. Therefore, I had 5 models, 2 for micro A, micro B, and then to compare between these 2 groups about microeconomics, and finally about international economies. The results are here. And again, I found that in the case of this class, microeconomics A, it seems that the music has a negative impact. As I mentioned, I will tell you what is happening here later, yeah? But by contrast, microeconomic B is very clear there is a positive impact. When comparing between groups, it seems that the treatment, the music has also a positive impact. And in the case of international economies, is very, very clear. Yeah, there's a positive impact. What these numbers means, on average, when they are listening to music, they can improve the quiz scores in 8 to 20 base points, given all these kind of control variables and many of the things I have been doing for this. Well, what I found, in the background questionnaire, I also had an open question asking students to comment about the music, yeah? And the majority of the students, most of them were commenting that the music was good, yeah? Relaxing, it relaxed me, like it, good idea, comfortable, calm, yeah? They really enjoyed the music. And sometimes they even noted, yeah, they mentioned, you know, the music was there and I forgot about it and I just pay attention. But there are some students, particular in the class about microeconomics A with the negative impact, yeah, that I showed before, that they mentioned that the problem was related with the microphone, with the volume, but overall there are troubles with the internet connection and the sound. And I'm thinking, and this is my assumption here, and talking with students, that this most probably is because of these internet connection concerns that in the class of microeconomics say I did not find this positive evidence. I found more mixed results, but was not a result of the music, but was a result of the problems with the connection and the problems with the internet. Therefore, as an overall conclusion, I can tell you that using binaural music helped me to increase quizzes scores by 8 to 20 base points. And I also can tell you and advise the use of this music as a didactic tool in the classroom, virtual or not, and also for students just to study, to get ready for an exam at home. I am still using the music in my classroom, and I can see in particular that when I have to lecture, when I have to explain theory, that is highly useful to keep and maintain the attention of my students. And I will tell you that this is particularly relevant, at least in my country, and seems to me that many other countries, for this post-millennial generation, because we know very well that this generation, because of devices as smartphones and so on, they cannot pay attention to your lecture more than 20 minutes, yeah? And this music will be useful to keep and maintain attention of the students according with my results. Thank you, gracias, espacio balchoe.
Gracias. So, dear colleagues, if you have questions, please, you can raise hand or speak loud. No, I have one question, at least one, that I would like to ask. Maybe it's more like a comment. In the design of your study, the outcomes of your study is very sensitive to the approaches how to measure these educational outcomes, like
Right.
Microeconomics, macroeconomics, and international economics. I have several questions in these terms. Like, firstly, you have paid attention about quizzes, but can you just comment what was the quizzes? Who was the designer of these tests? Is it your methodology, and how do you is it some stable approach to measure learning outcomes? And how do you think that they are comparable in terms of the different subjects that you try to evaluate? Because maybe the tests are very different, and in terms of time, etc. So can you comment, please?
Yes, I got it. As I mentioned, I will not have time to mention all these details. But first, let me share my screen to show you just quickly, because yes, what you mentioned is something that I take into account. Let me stop sharing again because I was not. What happened here? Here it is. Okay. And now share screen. And see. I had a problem here. Well, let me tell in this class, and therefore with my colleagues, I was deciding what question to use and following the rules about these kind of questions, in the sense that the grammar is correct, that the question is clear, positive sense. All these recommendations, something that I was following for the selection of the question. Now, students have different background, and probably was a problem for me because I was using different quality of questions depending on the group. Microeconomics are just starting, and the guys in international economics, they are almost at the end of the career. They had a better knowledge of the economics, and therefore I was using a more complicated quiz for students in international economics versus students in microeconomics. But my major concern is that in the case of microeconomics, I was using true-false questions. Yeah, I was using 3 questions, and from these 3 questions, 2 questions are true-false, and 1 question was multiple choice for options. In contrast with the guys in international economics, where I found more evidence, yeah, I was using 3 questions with 5 different options and more complicated questions. Therefore, it could be that in the case of micro, just by chance, because it's 50-50, you will get right one of the questions. Obviously, it's not only one time. Yeah, I was using this 16 times. The quiz was 16 times in that case. So I had a lot of information about what is happening, but it is true. Just impossible because it was a natural experiment. Yeah, just later I was noting that was a mistake to use true-false question in the quiz for microeconomic students. And that I should be using multiple choice. It's what I'm thinking now, because that could be also a reason for the mixed results in case of the class of microeconomics A, that the quiz was using true-false question.
Thank you for this description. Colleagues, maybe some questions. I see some people online. Okay, we have time for one more question from myself.
Let me better to ask you, Dasha.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Let me ask you something. Do you note that I'm using the music now?
Sorry?
I am using this music right now. Do you know that?
No.
Can you hear the music? Let me increase the volume.
No. Everybody, nothing that no.
And now, please. Silence.
No.
No. Well, I'm using the music right now, and it's not exactly music. It's like these 2 songs, yeah. And probably could be difficult because depending on the quality in your classroom, yeah. But think that my students were at home with the soundboards, yeah, and therefore obviously they can hear the music, yeah. And I'm using the music, and probably you didn't note that because it's a very low volumes to don't disturb when I'm telling you. But the music is here, because actually it's like 2 songs that you could say, you don't know what is that, yeah? Sometimes my students, hey, professor, noted that there was some kind of sound that they didn't know what is happening. And just at the end, when I stop the music, they can see that the music was there.
Interesting.
Now tell me that you had any other question.
Yeah, I had one question about the methodology. I didn't get if you control some background information about the students,
yes.
Like maybe you have some questionnaire about socioeconomic background, etc. That is very important.
Yes. At the very beginning of the semester, they answer an exam, yeah, a test about microeconomics in the case of guys in international economics, and therefore I'm using the result of the very beginning, the knowledge of at the very beginning. I explained, we had an exam, next class, you should know the answer, it's not difficult, so they just arrive to answer the exam. And I'm using the score in this exam semester as a control variable. And I also using the average grade point. They reported the average grade point overall of subjects, and I also using something like that as a control variable. And nevertheless, it seems that the music is helping.
Okay, thank you very much. It is really very interesting experiment, and I hope that you will publish the results and we'll have opportunity to make more. I will have one more question. Yeah. Yes. Do you hear?
Yes, please, and the microphone will be better.
I'm curious their experience with the control one, because I think that's the thing to share with your how did you
Okay,
deal with
as in your case, I never mentioned that I was using the music. I'm telling you just right now, yeah. But with my students, I did not mention. Obviously, they noted. But I am not the only one that sometimes is using music. There is another professor using music, but they're using more popular music. Just at the very beginning, you start the music, and then you start your class. Yeah, because actually music is most popular than what we think. Therefore, students didn't know. I never mentioned something about the music. Just at the end of the second partial, when I was asking to give me the written consent to use the results of the quizzes and so on, then I explained what I was doing. And obviously, everybody noted, yeah? Everybody said, yes, Professor, I noted was the music. But for them at that moment was not something very clear, as in your case. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm using the music, you didn't note it, depends, yeah? But they, in addition, was difficult that probably they are talking about that because they were at home, they were not in the same place. It could be that somebody mentioned to other students, you know, since to me the professor is in music, it could be. But when I was asking them, this is not in the background questionnaire, it seems that was more or less irrelevant, that they didn't pay attention because what is happening with this advice for you, there is a link in the chat, yeah? You can Google. When you are using this music, after a few minutes, you forget about the music. The music is there, but actually you will not the music anymore. And that is what happened with the students. The music is there. They cannot, the music in particular at the very beginning because of silence. And then later you forget about the music because you already got focused on what you are doing. That is the intention of the music. And therefore, yes, it's possible that the students were talking about that. But in my opinion, nobody was thinking that I was using the music with the purpose to improve the quiz score, things like that. That is what I'm thinking after I was talking with them about the music and what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, that is true, it's a natural experiment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. It is really very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we hope that you will have some opportunity to have experiments like this and opportunity to write papers.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next presenter is, I guess, yeah. Next will be the Munagi Chamat. Yeah, Kara. So the floor is yours. I will open the presentation. On this one, right? And I guess we need to. Oh. I don't know if yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Good evening to all. I'm Shamat Ranavira. Actually, I'm come from Sri-Lanka. Right now, I'm studying at HSC, Faculty of Economic Science, master in strategic corporate finance. When I was in my bachelor's studies, I've done this research because this is the research idea come from my life experience. That's why I decided to do this kind of research. So the role of university supporting services.
Sorry, can you use your microphone, please?
Okay.
Seems to me that will be better. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry.
No.
My research was the role of university supporting services in enhancing the psychological well-being of undergraduate students in Sri Lanka. Next slide. The psychological well-being of undergraduate students of multidimensional constructs like encompassing the factors such as stress, anxiety, depressions, and overall life satisfactions. These services encompasses wide range of resources, including career advising, counseling, health services, and academic assistance. The primary functions is to provide students with the necessary support in navigating the challenges of the university life, both academically and emotionally. So the poor mental health directly affect the academic performance with the students with the mental illness, reporting the difficulties with the motivations, concentrations, and confidence, all of which inputs negatively on the ability to persist of success in a tertiary environment. So as a Sri Lankan higher education systems continues to evolve, the psychological well-being of undergraduate students has generated the increasing the attentions, the challenges, the pursuits, and the expectations that accompany with the pursuit of the degree can have the significant impact of the students' mental and emotional health. My research questions was to what extent the university supporting services in Sri Lanka contribute to the undergraduate student psychological well-being. When I'm talking about the significance of my study, the understanding the impact of university supporting services on the psychological well-being of undergraduate students is the paramount significance. The findings of this study can provide valuable insights for the both academic and educational policymakers. For the educational institute, it's offer an opportunity to evaluate and enhance their supporting structures to better address the well-being of their students. Additionally, the study has potential to guide the allocations of resources and developments of more targeted interventions and ultimately contributing to the holistic developments of undergraduate students in Sri Lanka. When I'm talking about the literature review, the theoretical framework of its study combining social support theory and the psychosocial model provides a robust basis for the understanding how university support services are enhance the psychological well-being of undergraduate students in Sri Lanka by offering the emotional support, informational resources, and instrumental assistance. These services are expected to mitigate the negative effects and threats, contribute to the overall well-being of the students. For examples, like our physical well-being impact on our mental health for the multiple reasons. First, our brain in an organ, so we can combine with unwell just like any other organs. Like secondly, I can say that the physical health conditions can work the mental health. For example, chronic pain can lead to the symptoms of depressions, and the mental health and the behavior can be cyclical. For examples, like an individual who self-isolated as the symptoms of the depressions may experience increasing depressive symptoms as a result of the isolations. The role of university services and psychological well-being, which is also included in my literature review. When we're talking about the methodology and the research designing, this study employed a mixed method approach to investigate the role of university supporting services in enhancing the psychological well-being in Sri Lanka. So undergraduate students. So the utilization of both qualitative and quantitative research methods allow to more in-depth and holistic understanding of the research questions. When I'm talking about the sampling, the study involved mostly the sample of 500 undergraduate students from state universities in Sri Lanka, and stratified sampling method I used for that experiments and the various universities within the country. And these methods ensure that the sample integrated the diverse range of students, account for areal demographics. When I'm talking about the quantitative survey, so the structured questionnaire was developed consisting 4 main sections: demographics, psychological well-being, the use of the university supports, and the pursuit efficiency for the support services. And also I have conducted the qualitative interviews. They collected the qualitative data, so I have conducted the research. The subsection samples of the 20 students psychology purposely participated in the qualitative interviews. These are the research that I have. Okay, so first graph that you can explain the number of students academic disciplines wise, social sciences, natural sciences, engineering, humanities, and the health sciences, and the graph you can see the number of students gender-wise. Feeling the sadness or depression, anxiety or work. So that's where can be who students from the universities or frequently sad the situations when I'm talking about the stress related to the academic workload. So I can say the health sciences students are majority of the people who are suffering that kind of illness. These graphs explaining the student utilizations of university support services. You can see the overall 500 students. Only the 47.4% that are used to utilizing the university service and support services. From that example, you can see the second group I have explaining, I have mentioning the academic disciplines wise, social sciences, social science, and etc. And the corner pie chart is explaining what are the university support services that they are utilizing right now. Under the pursuit efficiency of university support services, the students who utilize the university support services have made some quite the university support services satisfactions of the services is to access and the patients. So based on that results, the university service, most of the utilized students are saying that it's very effective and the satisfactions, the access, which is quite different results I could get, because it's most of them are saying the neutral, because I think I'm also agree with that in Sri Lankan situations. It's quite supporting services. This plastic to measure the support service, probably explain the analysis high level under the and talking about satisfactions or effectiveness of the university support services. So these are the scripted records that I extracted from the interviews. When I'm talking about experience in stress, anxiety, and depressions, most of them are giving this kind of answers. Like if I'm saying the increased responsibilities, lack of good time management, and changing eating and sleeping habits due to the such factors, stress and depression. The first ones, while when we are studying in universities, normally in South Asian countries, we do have to face the rat seasons. So at that time, we don't have any freedom to study in midnight. So most of the senior students are throughout the day, even the nighttime. So it's quite a stress period for me as well. So, and the impact of the university's support services, positively mental focus of developing environments and where can try and reach the optimal potentials at the study life. These are the comments from the students. Suggestion to enhance the university support services in Sri Lanka. It is, if I'm reading the second one, especially it should be improve the university physical facilities for the students, like air conditions, and it is needed to implementations effective timetables for balance studies, their leisure times activities. in my opinion, that I think better social communities will enhance the psychological well-being among the students. These are the comments from the students who are right now in Sri Lanka. And my findings, only 47.4% of surveyed students has utilized university support services, with counseling, career advising services being most frequently assessed, and university support services in Sri Lanka are not effectively addressing the psychological well-being of undergraduate students, and students who use those supporting services exhibits lower level of depressions, anxiety, and the stress. And the challenges identified including limited awareness of the supporting services, lack of perceived accessibility, and the confidentiality concerns, and the doubt about the services effectiveness. Qualitative interview revealed that the students who use the supporting services generally had positive experience, but encountered issues such as extended waiting time and limited services availability. These are the significant implications throughout my research. The university and policymakers should prioritize the provisions of support services and practice for the students, risk and psychological distress, continuous evaluations and enhance of support services, and crucial to align with the evolving students' needs, and increasing awareness of support services and reducing stigma associated with seeking mental health assistance are essential for the improving students' well-being in Sri Lanka. If I mention my limitations towards the finding may be limited, state universities in Sri Lanka might not be generalized to other contexts, and social disability bias may influence self-reported data, and the cross-sectional nature of the study limits the establishment of the casualty.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. The colleagues' questions. It seems that traditionally, okay, can I ask you a question? And what's your opinion about the direction of the relationship between the usage of the support services and stress and psychological well-being? I have some just hypothesis that students who are less stressed and who are less who are more, I don't know, positive in terms of their activity, etc. More frequently will go to support services just because they are more active, etc. And people who are in depression, they will not go to these support services, especially if they are not like specifically psychological services, but they are like career services or something like this. So maybe the direction is vice versa, not that support services helps, but just students who are less stressed can have some power to, like inner power to go to these support services. What do you think about this?
According to my experience, I can say, yeah, you are right now, but it's not practical in Sri Lanka. So according to my experience in my university, we don't have this kind of services, even psychological, academic career advisors and everything. For example, when I applied to the Open Doors, they did not issue my degree certificates if I was completed my degree. Still, they did not issued my diploma certificates. I'm under the obligations with the HSC. And those kind of situation I go through, and it's so much stress. I have emailed even to the vice chancellor. Even he did not respond to my emails. Those kind of situation, I think most of the students are suffering this kind of.
I see. So it is a little bit the focus is not more on like support services in the traditional terms, but on the in general management and administrative some support of the process, educational process, etc. So because my perception from the literature support services is like some additional stuff that students have, but not the like just traditional support management of the process, like I don't know, student managers at the educational programs or deans, etc. So it's okay. Thank you very much. It's very interesting topic. Colleagues, maybe please. I think yes, because it seems that it's better.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I've got a couple of questions. My first question, I wanted to find out, when you make your research in Sri Lankan universities, and you said the university support, what does it include? Is it include, because in UK, for example, university support includes financial support, some academic support, and some psychological support, administrative support, and so on. They diverse and they vary between each other. And you connected that to the psychological well-being. I just wanted to find out which of those supports are really reflective on the psychological side of students. And my second question is about the methodology. I wanted to find out, was it sequential mixed method or was it parallel?
It's a parallel.
Parallel, okay, thank you.
The first question, my answer was I can see my answer is I can see counseling services and academic advice services that can be comes under the psychological well-being, and also meantime in Sri Lankan state universities all are free if you are got the good results in your advanced levels. The higher education is free in Sri Lanka. Maybe this is the main reasons. The most of the university administrations are not concerning these kind of services because it's all are free education. The students are maybe going to the state universities. They are not much comes from the rich families. So those kind of things are.
They all add up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, for Karin. So I guess for today we have third presentation from Ivan Kislenko.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and you can share the screen.
Yeah, sure. But first, disable participant screen sharing. You.
Okay, yeah, 1 second. Now.
Let's see. Yeah, it works perfectly. So, do you see something?
Yes, we see the first
Okay,
slide.
so it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Thank you everyone for coming. Today I'm going to present my paper. It's already a written paper. Justification practices of Soviet sociology uniqueness in the late Soviet doctoral dissertations of 2 academies, reminder from the past. I'm going to start with some theoretical issues which are necessary for understanding of the context of the paper. So this paper works with the current transformations in the field of doctoral education, from changes from so-called scientific doctoral education or научная аспирантура as we know it in Russia, to the declarative rejection of the Bologna system that we're currently witnessing, how the system of doctoral education is changing. At the same time, we're witnessing narratives of the need to return, to revive, to restore the Soviet practices of education. And it's mostly coming from lobbyists of various types, meaning political actors, and those who are responsible for the changes or for the reforms in higher education. It mixes with another topic, with the nostalgia on Soviet paternalism, which was very influential even before these changes. Now we are witnessing that it's getting more and more powerful. But these speakers, political actors, or more generally speaking, stakeholders ignoring key problems in Soviet practices that I would like to address. And one of them is ideology. And before going further to the analysis of Soviet uniqueness of Soviet sociology and the late Soviet doctoral dissertations, I would like to bring to the discussion some theoretical issues on the uniqueness of local knowledge and the local canon of scientific activity. When we're talking about having something unique in the knowledge production, then we're talking mostly on the focus on the local. It means that we accept the idea of plurality of knowledge production. It means that we have the idea of multipolarity. At the same time, it is accompanied with the need to declare the independence from the West, global North. And at the same time, it's connected with the desire to have own system of education without the reference to the Western patterns of knowledge production, Western structures of education. Speaking about Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact countries, we can use the metaphor of socialist economy. So the idea is if the Western societies had their own Western modernity, and then we can talk about the education in this very specific context, then we could possibly have a different modernities. And one of the metaphors would be socialist economy. Caitlin Clark introduced this term in 2021, and she worked, of course, with this notion even before, but the book was published in this year, and it means mostly the different modernity from the Western, based on the socialistic ways of knowledge production. In this paper, I just defined as socialist equivalent just countries of Warsaw Pact and USSR itself. It also includes the set or canon, of practices in science in the USSR and its sphere of influence. So we have a very specific set of practices that I will analyze a bit later. And then on top of this, we have ideology. Ideology is everywhere, from dissertations, as we will see, to doctoral school admissions. So some historical issues that I would like to mention here. Since we are talking about the nostalgia on golden age of doctoral education in the USSR, we need to understand the early architecture of doctoral education in the USSR, which is still valid to current state of affairs. Maybe it's slightly transformed, yes, but the main nostalgic statements would be kind of the same. So in the early 20s, the USSR system of doctoral education faced the necessity to replace the scientific staff against the backdrop of the ideological unsuitability of the old academic elite. For this purpose, Institute of the Right Professorship was established, where you can get a degree like relatively fast, like in 2 years, but you need to be ideologically suitable. At the same time, in 30s, there were some decrees on measures of social and economic support for doctoral students. There were introduced several scholarships, programs, then some support for the accommodation, etc., etc. This decrease intended to formalize the design of Soviet doctoral education. At the same time, so-called Higher Attestation Commission was founded in 1934, and the structure of scientific degrees eventually emerged. As we emerged in the context that we know now, candidate of science and doctor of science. At the same time, very important issue is nomenclature of scientific specializations and its connection with sociology. Because in Soviet Union, sociology was banned for a while, and we know that. And at the same time, this system of scientific specialization defined who can have a degree, or which degrees you can obtain in Soviet Union. And you could not obtain a sociology degree in Soviet Union for a while. It happened only in 1988. Sociology itself in the USSR has a very strange status, unstable steps, I would say. At the very beginning, it was banned for a while, then it was considered so-called bourgeois science, along with genetics, cybernetics, etc. The phenomenon of Lysenkoism emerged, meaning that the ideological suitability was better than actual scientific aspirations of the scholar, which will be more important for the promotion to positions, etc. At the same time, sociology was very useful as an ideological endeavor, and people in Soviet Union realized it quite early. In the Politburo, after the World War II, they started to use sociology as an ideological tool based on historical materialism. So historical materialism at some point constituted the theoretical content of sociology. There is not and cannot be sociology outside or above historical materialism. Thus, sociology could not be focused on solving fundamental theoretical problems, since this function was retained by ideological bureaucracy. Yeah, I just made milestones in the reformation of the status of sociology, doctoral education in the field of sociology, just briefly described on the slide. In the context of my presentation, it is important to define the period of what I'm analyzing, like the dissertations from 1988 to 1991. It's just not the coincidence that I chose this periodization, because in 1988, sociology was included in this list that I mentioned of scientific specialization. The Communist Party revised the status of sociology. At the same time, a rather conservative state of Institute for Social Research was changed to more liberal atmosphere of Institute of Sociology in 1988. So sociology became a part of the Reformation, of the Glasnost and Perestroika. So in my paper, I'm comparing two institutions: Institute of Sociology of Russian Academy of Sciences, and here is a brief history of this institution. It was started as a liberal institution, let's say, in the period of ottepel, and just for 4 years, the atmosphere was indeed quite liberal. But then the institute was kind of destroyed, and from 72 to 88, it was Institute of Sociological Research. And I would like to quote the order or the decree that actually destroyed the previous structure. To restructure from September 1st, 1972, the general project History of Sociology in the Western European countries, which was the main project of the Russian of the Academy of Sciences, into the sector of the history of Marxist-Leninist sociology and criticism of bourgeois sociology. And Institute of Sociology, as we know, it started its history from 1988. At the same time, I'm comparing Institute of Sociology's rather liberal ideal type with the conservative ideal type, which stands for Academy of Social Sciences. An Academy of Social Sciences existed under the Central Committee of Communist Party, starting from 1946. Then there were some transformations, and then it was established as the institution that I'm analyzing only in 1978. And it was focused on the training of highly qualified leaders for central, Republican, and regional party state bodies, ideological institutions, and organizations. So basically, with a simplification, of course, but we can talk about the confrontation between two sociologies in Soviet Union. One inherited the doctrinal greatness of Stalin Marxism in Academy of Sciences, of Social Sciences, and the other sought to reassess values, try to develop new topics and research methods. So we have these two ideal types, once again. Institute for Sociology as a liberal one, Academy of Sciences, of Social Sciences as a conservative. So I decided to analyze open source data from Russian State Library Rubricator, C5 Sociology. It's open source data, everyone can actually reach it. Out of 329 dissertations, I analyzed 99 dissertation abstracts, which were manually selected by me. Of course, this database does not contain all defended dissertations, but only a part of them that were included there in the most random way, and we do not even know how they appeared there. So my basic hypotheses are the following: ideological implications have not disappeared even from late Soviet dissertation, regardless of the period of perestroika and glasnost. At the same time, Academy of Social Sciences is a more conservative organization than the IS. It seems like a very obvious, rather obvious hypothesis, but we will see later that it's not that obvious as it seems. So I used qualitative, quantitative concept analysis. I defined 10 criteria. 5 of them I call them objective criteria, which are based just on the presence of some mentions in the text of the abstracts. Subjective criteria are connected mostly with the justifications and statements by the author, some very vague or sometimes concrete statement on the following topics. You can see them on the screen. So just some result that I found out. Yes, one more thing that I need to address here. I'm analyzing not only works in sociology, but also in philosophy, because the rubricator, C5 Sociology of Russian State Library, includes both of them, because at that period of time, it was still possible to defend dissertations in the field in sociology starting from 1988, but still some scholars defended thesis in the field of sociology. So we can see that objective criteria, as here. Party documents, Marxism, Leninism, Marx and Engels, reference only to scientists of the socialistic domain, Lenin and his works, historical materialism and dialectics. These are objective criteria. We can see that Academy of Social Sciences is indeed more conservative in the sense of sociology. We can talk that sociology is more liberally presented at Institute of Sociology. Then we can see that in philosophy the things are a bit different. So we cannot say that it's much different in this regard, and sociology is significantly different in this organization. Then, if we will exclude specializations which are mostly ideological, meaning theory of scientific communism and socialism, scientific ethics, and political culture and ideology, we will see that the results are not that much obvious. We see that Institute of Sociology and the dissertations in philosophy demonstrate rather conservative results, even more conservative than Academy of Social Sciences. Just some examples of the objective criteria, for example, how Marx and Engels are usually ending up in dissertation. So Marx and Engels never used the term political culture. However, while studying specific economic and political process, they also studied the reflection in the consciousness and behavior of individuals, classes, and parties. So people mostly introduced Marx and Engels just to have them there, without any actual intention to mention them there. So that's why I call these criteria objective. Then we can talk about subjective criteria in dissertations in sociology. I expected to have some criticism of bourgeois sociology and or society, but none of the dissertation had these criteria. But we can see that perestroika was part of the huge discussion in both at both organizations. And in this regard, in subjective criteria, it's not that obvious that Academy of Sciences is more conservative than Institute for Sociology. The same we can see in the dissertations in philosophy. Perestroika is a huge part of the dissertations. People mostly criticize, and we will see that perestroika is the social event in Soviet Union. But at the same time, criticism of bourgeois sociology emerged in dissertations in philosophy. Once again, there is none mention of any criticism of bourgeois sociology in the dissertations in sociology. But at the same time, philosophy produces this narrative more and more in dissertations. So we have basically this presence only in these dissertations. Yeah, now I'm just gonna read some examples, and I'm gonna wrap up because I think I'm taking a lot of time now. Just some examples of the criticism, just rather moderate criticism so far. For example, mentioned, meaning Soviet authors critically examine bourgeois historiography associated with the study of developing countries. Whereas bourgeois theories and perspective based on the third world development demonstrate the political neo-colonial background of the theories. Okay, that was like rather moderate criticism. But we have more radical examples here. For example, let's see. The class enemy seeking by any means to embellish capitalism, to denigrate the socialist system, unleashed a psychological war against the USSR, which cannot be qualified otherwise than a special form of aggression, informational imperialism, attack on the sovereignty, history, culture of people. So here we can see some interconnections with current political narratives, but that's not much matter in this context. Criticism of perestroika is just completely another story. You can see just on the screen some examples of that. For example, the forces awakened by glasnost often do not find constructive applications, which is rather moderate. But then you can see on the screen some more radical examples. Then criticism of Soviet sociology also exists. For example, decades of domination of administrative command system have led to the alienation of workers from property, the results of their labor, and from power. In essence, the labor movement has disappeared in the country. It has been replaced by all sorts of imitation, props, and fakes. So now, yeah, I'm gonna just wrap up. The hypotheses were confirmed with minor comments. Ideological practice of knowledge production were indeed still present in thesis. Even taking into account that perestroika and glasnost were already in power for 3 years in 1988, and all these institutional changes in doctoral education has been already implemented. In dissertations in sociology, the Academy of Social Sciences is indeed a more conservative organization, but in the case of philosophy, such undebatable statement cannot be confirmed. And another result, which is, in my opinion, quite important, if we remove the most ideologically oriented specialization, then we do not see the same difference between these organizations. So I called my presentation the reminder from the past, just to remind that when we have a nostalgia on the golden age of doctoral education, on paternalistic narratives in this context, then we are forgetting about one important thing. The discussion of the return of Soviet practices does not take into account the context where Soviet science existed. This golden era of doctoral education is based on nostalgic statements, political opportunism, but also indeed on a number of paternalistic measures of doctoral student support. The architecture of doctoral education took shape back in the 30s and still influences this field. We do not know how such models will work in new conditions, but we know exactly what was the price for the existence of such a model. And I just tried to demonstrate that in my work. Thank you.
Ivan, thank you very much for your presentation. There are lots of topics to think about. Colleagues, maybe somebody want to ask a question or comment? I see Dmitry, who is online, raised his hand. Dmitry, you can speak.
Yes, yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Ivan, thank you very much. I just wonder, did you investigate the place where exactly these stances, especially when it comes to the references to the Marxism-Leninism, were located? Because my immediate response would be probably the some of them, maybe some of these the doctoral students may use their sandwich strategy, as it was very well known in Soviet Union, to start their certain work and end it with the references to the Marxism-Leninism without they explore these concepts in any possible way during the text of the work itself. Because probably my question is, did you see where exactly where in the structure of the thesis you explored, these references were very actively used? Thank you.
Yeah, I can exactly tell you where they were mostly located. I don't have any statistical proofs, but since I was analyzing the abstract of the dissertations, right, the majority of the objective criteria, and I addressed that in my paper. Actually, that's just like a huge point because I didn't include this in my presentation. And thank you for asking. It's mostly we're talking mostly about theoretical and methodological background of the research. So it's more symbolic if we're talking about objective criteria, indeed. So I addressed that specifically, and I need to clarify that now. So it's more a symbolic action to include Marx or Lenin or Engels or whatever in the theoretical and the methodological background of the dissertation. So that's rather clear, indeed. And then I had subjective criteria just to clarify the actual argument of the authors, just to try to grasp it. Because sometimes we do not have any opportunity to define whether these references were included just to cover the real intentions of the authors, or they were just included because it was just a tradition, that it was maybe not a tradition, but it was just obligatory. So there is no any chance to define that. But with the subjective criteria, with the support of the subjective criteria, we have a chance to see that, and I tried to address that in my presentation. We are bringing some quotes from the dissertations that I analyzed. So yeah, you are absolutely right. This sandwich strategy existed. I totally agree.
Thank you. Actually, I had very close question to maybe go. And once again, and if it is some formalistic approach to mention some, the topic is very important because Marx, etc., or because we are trying to beat our Western enemies, etc. Just some authors mention this stuff, but Is it even possible to see dissertations with the empirical part? Maybe there are some dissertation with the empirics, and to see if these statements and these political statements are somehow influence the empirical part. So maybe on the level of some specific dissertations, if you just take dissertations with empirics and then see if these empirics are influenced by political statements, you can make some I don't know, interpretation on how this how it shapes the sociological research and studies in Soviet times. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that was more like a comment indeed, but I have never thought about that actually. It might be like an addition or a revision if the reviewers will send something. I could just use it as a revision just to have an additional argument, because it seems valid to me. Because yeah, there is like a huge space for manipulation, just using the theory, just to prove some, just using the empirics, just to prove something that you want to prove, just to justify the theoretical argument. So it can be, but I haven't looked at this issue and I have not analyzed that. So I don't have any information in my mind currently. So it could be an additional point for thinking, let's say. Thank you.
Colleagues, I guess we can stop here because we have only 3 presentations for today's session, but all of them were very interesting, very different in terms of topics, but very deep in understanding the problems that on the different levels higher education meet. So thank you very much for participation, and thank you very much for all who are here in the room and online. Have a nice day and evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Спасибо, до свидания.
До свидания.